Welcome to the Laws of Style, featuring conversations on creativity, fashion, and the law from the leading edge of our economy and culture. Hosted by noted fashion lawyer Douglas Hand.
Hello, and welcome to the podcast, The Laws of Style, downloading to you from the office of the law firm HBA, high above Bryant Park in the Fashion District of New York City. I'm your host, Douglas Hand, fashion lawyer, fashion law professor, and self-styled, well-dressed man. For this episode, I'm joined by the founder of menswear brand LGFG Fashion House, Dimitry Toukhcher. Dimitry, thank you for joining us.
Hey, thank you for having me here.
And so, Dimitry, this is the first Law of Style episode, or Laws of Style episode, where we are doing a Skype call. Where are you calling in from?
Yeah, I'm in Estonia, which is ironically the country that founded Skype.
Okay, little known fact. All right, well, on to other Estonian startups and companies founded. Tell us about LGFG and how you came to found it and some of the challenges that perhaps you faced as an entrepreneur.
Well, so the company actually was founded in Canada because I'm Canadian, and it was in Calgary, Alberta. And about 4 or 5 years ago, I moved to Estonia, and the company headquarters and everything kind of came with that. And we've sort of been expanding from here. This has been our sort of the brain and the heart of our organization is based here.
Okay.
And the idea was pretty straightforward. I mean, again, it was about bringing convenience to clients where most men don't like shopping. I mean, there are obviously some dudes that do, but most men just don't. It's just a fact, and it's not something we're ever going to change, right? So the idea was to bring the products to our clients in their home or office. Primarily, it's at the office. So if we're dealing with lawyers, which we deal with a lot, we'll come to their law firm a couple days a week or a couple days a month, depending on the size of the firm. And then we'll have folks come in and do their shopping, get measured there, and everything is pretty quick. And the delivery and the fitting takes place in their office as well. So for a lawyer like you might charge $1,000 an hour, going to the store on a Saturday or on a Friday and going to the, finding parking, going through shop to shop, all that stuff. I think we're probably saving our clients more money than they're spending. If you think about billable hours. So that's been the model. And
keep the lawyer at the desk. They're always productive at the desk. Yes.
We want to keep our salespeople productive, just like the way law firms want to keep their lawyers billing. I mean, that's the reality. And when you're doing that, you're also servicing your clients at the highest level. So it's a win-win relationship between client, lawyer, firm, and in our case, between us and our clients as well. And challenge-wise, I mean, I think every entrepreneur and every organization faces similar challenges, which would be cliche to repeat. But, first and foremost is how do you break through the noise and get the client to try your service above the thousands of other options available to them? Much like as a lawyer, how do you get a client to come on board with you when there are thousands of other options available? And that's the challenge, the primary challenge everybody faces, right?
So what are other than doing podcasts, which is maybe a non-traditional method to reach your customer, what are some of the other things that you've done as an organization to reach out?
So one thing is we film a TV show that's on YouTube called The Suit Maker. I don't know if you've had a chance to see it a little bit, but
yeah, very, very informative. I enjoyed it.
That's awesome. So, I'll travel to meet with our clients and with our manufacturers and actually record it into 20 to 30 minute episodes where it's very high production value, but we get a chance to share the stories of our clients. And these are like pretty legit shows. The guys that do it for us, the production team was working on Top Model Finland. So I hired a good crew behind me, and it's getting a bit of traction. That's investing into the brand and showing that we take our brand seriously. We're a very software-driven company, which the client doesn't see, but what it does is it increases our level of execution, meaning that if we're calling out to clients, we're able to track and implement ways to grow. If we're grow our own productivity in-house, let's put it that way, which of course results in higher return at the end. We partner with many, many events around the world. Today, we're at some private equity conference in Vienna, Austria. We were at the Nordic Business Forum last week, both Sweden and Norway, which was an event where Simon Sinek was speaking, where we're putting our brand in front of thousands of prospective buyers. And again, showing that we're serious about our brand, that we're actually putting significant investment into the resources behind our brand because we're serious in what we do. And of course, execution is 90% of the business. Like there's obviously the idea, but most ideas are kind of good anyways. It's the execution where the ideas fail.
Well, so let's talk clothes a little bit. And obviously, LGFG is international in terms of its client base. Personal opinion. I mean, the differences between the way men dress and present themselves in Europe versus the United States versus Asia. Maybe articulate some of those. And, if you have men that, disproportionately on a geographical basis use the service.
Yeah, so I think the number one thing about, for example, Europe is that people just don't want to look American.
Americans don't want to look American either.
Well, there you go. American suits are known, and they're, and again, this is cliche, but it's kind of that big 3-button baggy suit, with pleats. Okay, cool. And that works in the South. I mean, guys like that. They like comfort, and that's great. But that's just not the European market. Like when we're selling, let's say into Sweden or into Switzerland or similar places, what happens is people, of course, want that sort of a fitted, slimmer, shorter look. It's just how it is, and it's coming in the U.S. as well. I'm sure in bigger financial markets like California or New York, that's what people prefer now too. Mm-hmm. But that's not sort of the traditional American look. So there's that look aspect. In terms of color, there's actually a really good part in the last episode of The Suitmaker we filmed with our production house leader, Edward, who's our head tailor, and he talks how bright colors and things that are a little bit more exorbitant tend to sell better in the Far East. Like Hong Kong is one of our better selling offices right now, and we are seeing a much bigger preference for brighter, more bold patterns, more let's say exclusive colors that you would not find on a typical legal professional in the United States.
Is this in suiting or odd jackets?
Both, actually, both. So you'll see a lot of, like in the States, from my experience, the furthest people tend to go in a corporate setting would be like a Prince of Wales, which is not very exorbitant, but already it's not a solid. Whereas in Asia, you're going to see a lot of, window panes and unique combinations of window paints, bright pinks and yellows and things that, again, would be considered a little too dandy in the United States to wear in a serious office, but are actually quite culturally acceptable in the Far East.
Well, so tell our listeners the importance, really, of custom tailoring versus purchasing off the rack, and what they're getting by getting a tailored product versus something off the rack.
So I have a different opinion of this than most people, because I think as a CEO of a fashion house, people would expect a custom fashion house. People would expect me to say, better fit and unique and all that, and that's all nice. For me, it's a little different. Look, I'm a 46 regular off the rack, and I fit perfectly. No adjustments. I'm just built to be fit off the rack, which people are surprised to hear. But here's the thing. With the way that the world is set up today, with the amount of information, let me put it this way, the way that logistical costs have been reduced so significantly by realizing economies of scale, a custom suit today costs not more than a suit off the rack. It doesn't cost more. It's the same thing. So if you're going to go one way or the other, why not go custom? Like there's no financial restraint to do it. It used to be reserved for the very wealthy. It's not anymore. And so, depending, of course, on the quality you want, you can get a matching quality level off the rack or custom at the same price point. So why not get something made for yourself?
Mm-hmm. Well, so I believe your suits are made in England.
Yeah.
And is there a particular design philosophy that you align with, or is it a free-for-all?
Yeah, so initially when we started, the idea was, kind of British tailoring, which is straight lines, which is, more fitted. The difference, of course, if for those people that don't know, most people kind of do know, is that Italian tailoring tends to be a little bit more freestyle. Like there's some, let's say, allowance for error in Italian tailoring that's part of the beauty, like especially Neapolitan, which I covered in episode 2 of The Suitmaker, where we actually visit a famous Neapolitan tailor, where you see, a bigger, baggier sleeve, as the tailor says, so that you can reach out to kiss the lady's hand. You see some minor imperfections in the stitching, right? Because it's done by hand, and that's great. We started out kind of looking at straight lines and kind of, because British tailoring comes from the military. So kind of like the way that you're dressed right now, you see like straight lines, very impeccable, very detail orientated, and that's fantastic. And that's been a big hit for us. However, as we've grown up, we've realized that, in fact, part of being a custom house is not about imposing your image onto others. It's about letting others realize their own vision. And so it has become a lot more loose, in the sense that we do a lot of linen, we do a lot of cotton. We do things that people want. And I have, looking at our client database, There are clients that tell us straight up, they say, look, I know that young men want to dress a certain way, but that's not who I am. And I prefer my clothes baggy. And I'll simply tell them up front, I'll say, look, if that's the case and they ask where you got your suit, make sure to preface that answer with, I told them that this is what I wanted.
Right, right. Well, do you find that your customers are a great source of marketing in and of themselves, that word of mouth is a component of your success?
They're the only source of marketing, really. I mean, at the end of the day, social selling is core to our business model because we're not an online retailer. So there's, we don't do like pay-per-click advertising, and we're likewise not a physical retailer. So there's nobody that's going to walk in off the street. So our entire reputation is built on our clientele.
Well, so Dimitry, because you've read my book cover to cover at this point, that I elucidate a bunch of guidelines for men, and in particular white-collar professionals, to dress in a manner that is capable and elegant. That really, those are two, goals. And as a lawyer, that's best done in tailored clothing, I feel. As an entrepreneur, but an entrepreneur in tailored clothing, how do you think you best present yourself? I mean, today sartorially, you have some colors and patterns going on. There's you've got a pin. Is this your normal look? And if so, what does it communicate about you and the product that you put forward?
So when I was still seeing clients face to face, which I don't get too much anymore because we have people that do it, and I'm sort of behind the operation. One of the things that I found myself constrained by is that I lived in downtown. And my office was in downtown, and I would run into my clients when I would just take the garbage down in my building. And so I couldn't wear a t-shirt and a pair of shorts taking the garbage down in my building because people would see me that I knew. I had clients living in my building, right? And a couple of times where, you see a tailor wearing a t-shirt and shorts, you kind of think it's a little weird. So I sort of had to dress up just to take the garbage out, and that became the norm, right? Now, obviously, not everybody is constrained by the same kinds of constraints that, you're a lawyer, not in that business. But I would put it this way. If a client runs into, I'll give you an example. It's a true story because I won't name names, but I had a prospective client I went to see who was a partner at a prestigious law firm one time. I won't say the city, I won't say the firm, but anyways, I was, I met with him and we did some transactions. And then later, a few weeks later, I was walking probably with my girlfriend now, my wife, walking by some downtown. It was a pub outside, and the same lawyer was outside throwing up. And the point of the story is what I witnessed was a profound moment of incompetence. If you're a partner at a firm, and especially in this case was a fairly prestigious firm, there's a certain level of competence you have to present in all areas of your life, not just at work, because that reflects on you as an individual, and that reflects at your core character, right? And so even though I don't need to wear a suit everywhere I go, I nonetheless have a requirement not to be seen as incompetent in anything that I do. That's important for me internally within my organization to set the culture straight. It's important for me externally because that's what the client sees. And that's the same advice that I would pass on to anyone else that's a professional.
Well, there have actually been studies done, which I lay out a few of them in the book, about enclothed cognition, that we are actually higher functioning and more capable of abstract thought when we are in tailored clothing. So you might want to look into those studies. Those could be a good little fodder for additional marketing. So back to clothes specifically, what are two essentials for every white-collar professional in terms of suiting? If a man is buying his first two suits, what two suits should those be, irrespective of where he is on the planet, assuming that he's a lawyer, a banker, an accountant, a service professional?
Well, back for a second to your point about your book and how you outlined studies that reference, LGFG, what it stands for, it's actually a phrase. And it was a famous Deion Sanders phrase back when he played football, which was, when you look good, you feel good. And when you feel good, you play good.
Mm-hmm.
And when you play good, you get paid good.
Deion. That's a blast from the past.
Yeah.
So the belief that clothing and just your image of yourself is reflective of your creativity and your productivity is implicit to our brand. We believe that as well.
It's also a feedback loop, I feel, in that you are putting out a very confident version of yourself and you are getting feedback externally that is positive. because people are looking at you in a certain way. You look sharp, you look capable, you are confident, your chin is cocked up maybe a couple of degrees higher. And with that feedback, it actually enhances your confidence more. So it's a wonderful thing to experience. And tailored clothing is not the only way to do it, but it's a good shorthand. So back to the essentials. 2 suits to 4 suits. I mean, I talk about 4 suits in the book, but if a man is buying just his first 2 suits, what should those most advisably be?
Yeah, so always a solid navy and a solid charcoal, because they just go with everything, and most men are not good at matching outfits. And even if you are, you get the biggest combination of matching with charcoal and dark navy.
And in terms of how many looks a man can transform those 2 suits into, particularly because they're solids, right? And so, the shirt and tie and pocket square combinations are virtually endless. Is that how you guide men for first purchases, to really stick with solids, stick with basic colors, the sort of Beau Brummel dark palette initially?
Absolutely, because I want my clients to wear my product. That's essential. If they don't, even if it looks amazing, they don't wear it because they're afraid to, or it doesn't fit into whatever situation. I lose and they lose, and that's not good.
Yeah. Do you have thoughts about the difference between fashion and style?
Yeah, I would say this. I would say that fashion is the government currently in power, and style is who you're voting for.
I like that. That's a good one. Yeah. Well, on that note, what is one style rule for you personally that you never break?
I always are slightly overdressed for every situation, because the consequences of being slightly overdressed are generally slightly positive, and the consequences of being slightly underdressed are generally magnificently more negative.
Yeah, I talk about, one of the laws of style is that really in terms of formality, one should always dress more formally than your client. And the only real ceiling on that is making sure that perhaps you don't dress too luxuriously or profligate, right? That, you're not sporting the gold Mariner watch, and that there are certain clients for whom they're going to see your billable rate in some of your choices. But tailored clothing often can be a hidden luxury insofar as even a very expensive suit, if it's executed well, doesn't necessarily look expensive. It doesn't scream, this cost $5,000. Maybe speak to that. And, do your customers appreciate that, or is that something that they learn to appreciate through spending time with your tailors?
I think everything in life, look, most of us aren't born super wealthy. Some are, and that's great, good for you, but most of us aren't. Most of us that are in a position of some sort of power, let's phrase it as power, are generally there because we're competent at what we do, and we're conscientious. We take pride in our work. It's important for us to do a good job. We take pride in our work, and what we get as a result of the work that we put out, which we take tremendous pride in, is we get a feedback from the universe that you're doing a good job. And how do we get that? Well, you get paid. And when you get paid, the way that you reinforce yourself as a competent human being is you get yourself something. For some of us, most of us eventually we rent or buy a nicer apartment or house because it becomes core to our identity. We upgrade our vehicle from the 1988 Toyota Corolla we drove in university to something a little bit more representative of our level of competence in society. That's important. And eventually that transliterates also into our clothing. So it's not just a matter of appreciating fine clothing, which of course it feels better. Of course it fits nicer. Of course it looks better. Of course. Otherwise it wouldn't exist, of course. But also, when I put on my suit in the morning, it's not just about that. It's about the reinforcement that I'm competent, which is very important to me. And when you're talking white collar, what's more important to a corporate lawyer than being competent?
Well, as a rule, I ask my guests who they're wearing. And I imagine your suit comes from LGFG, but
Correct.
The other elements of your ensemble, do they come from other brands, or are they all produced by you?
No, I refuse to wear anything else but LGFG, and Even when we launch a new product, like we launched recently a line of bamboo t-shirts because we have clients that are marketing guys that wear suits with a t-shirt underneath, which is happening. You see that today. And so we launched a very high-end bamboo t-shirt, which is a proprietary fabric that we came up with, 90% bamboo, 10% lycra. It doesn't absorb moisture. It doesn't wrinkle. It's better for travel. Like, it's just an incredible product, which I'm wearing right now under my dress shirt, right? When we were testing, it took us 3 years to launch this because we were testing different fabric combinations. I tested them on myself. And so even though the initial ones were not very good and they were just terrible products, but we weren't selling them yet, but I was wearing them because I wanted to learn about what my clients want to know about. Okay, so whether it's a mature product for us, whether it's our best seller like this suit, whether it's ties or a t-shirt that is brand new to us and we haven't even released it to market and won't for 3 years, I still take it upon myself to wear our product so I know what our client feels. Suit is LGFG, tie is LGFG, shirt is LGFG, t-shirt is LGFG, bamboo socks are LGFG, handmade shoes in Spain, LGFG, bamboo boxers, LGFG. Everything I'm wearing is LGFG.
Well, that fact notwithstanding, are there any contemporary brands that you appreciate from a design perspective, whether menswear or womenswear? I'll open it up.
Definitely. So I'm a big fan. I'm a collector of a brand of watches called Tonino Lamborghini. This is one right now.
Lovely.
And the reason I like it is because I really like cars. I visited the Ferruccio Lamborghini Museum in Italy last week. And so the fact that their watches combine design elements from cars, like you'll see this watch is designed after a steering wheel. There's some ones that have like literal brake pad designs and they have carbon fiber finishings to reflect a racing car. That connects with me as an individual. So Tonino Lamborghini watches I'm really, really big in. I'm big into watches in general. I really like Audemars Piguet. I like Hublot a lot. Those are brands that speak to me. I'll say this here, before we had released a line of shoes, which we make bespoke shoes, and they're just terrific. I really admired two brands. I really liked Ferragamo for their design elements. And you see a lot of that in our shoes. Like you'll see a lot of wingtip Crocs, which are sort of a Ferragamo signature. So I got a lot of those into our collection. And I really like Allen Edmonds, the classic shoe brand, because they're one of the last brands that still used Goodyear welts in their shoes, which even though I wasn't a fan of how firm it was, I love that the shoes lasted forever and could be resold. And so we also launched a line of Goodyear welts to give our clients that same option, which was inspired by a great company like Allen Edmonds.
Does LGFG make their shoes in England as well?
No, in Spain.
In Spain, okay.
Yes.
A lot of great manufacturings come out of Spain over the last couple of decades. Well, pivoting a little bit to the industry, I've seen a lot of unisex brand propositions coming online. My firm represents a few of them. What do you think about unisex as an answer at retail for certain men and women? Do you think it has a future, or do you feel that it is perhaps kind of latching on to a Gen Z fluidity, perhaps with sexuality in some ways, and it's just a trend?
That is an amazing question. And how does one answer that question without shooting oneself in the foot? You know what I mean? So,
hey, I ask the hard questions here on the Laws of Style.
Let's say this. So, I mean, of course it has a future because everything has a future. Like, everybody likes a different kind of cake, and there's a lot of different kind of cakes out there, and there's a lot of different kind of people out there. So you're going to find somebody that likes Neapolitan and somebody's going to like something else. That's not going away to some percentage of people, right? Mm-hmm. Me personally, and I'll say this without realizing how dangerous it is to say, I take pride in my masculinity. Like I do. Like I have a daughter. I also have two sons. And I'm not denying my sons the fact that I can tell that my son, who was just at my office earlier for lunch with my wife, we had a little family party. My son has an affinity for certain things which are implicit to him as a character. Like he just loves motorcycles. My daughter likes ponies. It's just how they are. You know what I mean? So for me, I take pride in my manly dress. If some people could refer that to it as manly, I don't know. But to me, I like that. Okay. And so I know unisex clothing, great. Nothing against it. Let it be. And it's cool. But at the end of the day, like I like to see in our office, our ladies wear suits. But they have, softer tones. They're wearing plum. They're wearing, colors that would be traditionally, let's say, affiliated with females. And some people might be offended by that. And I'm not, because I realize that those colors are traditionally affiliated with females, the same way that my daughter's favorite color is pink. And I don't know why, it just is. So yes, gender fluid clothing have a future. Do I think they're going to be the way to go? I don't think so. I don't think so, because there are people like me out there as well. And I take tremendous pride in the fact that as a man, I am responsible for certain things I don't expect my wife to be responsible for no other reason that it gives me tremendous pride to be responsible for those things. And, like providing for my family, I take tremendous pride in that. Being a leader at home and outside of home, I take pride in that. My wife's a leader in other areas, of course. But they are not the same areas, because my areas of competence are different from her areas of competence. And therefore, my way of dress is reflective of me as a character, and me as a character, masculinity is a part of that character.
Got it. Well, another question, industry question. My firm represents a lot of brands, and many of those brands have used influencers. And by influencers, I'm going to say individuals who may have some fame and certainly have a following on social media platforms for no reason other than they have a following on social media platforms, and what they post is of interest to a certain segment of the consuming public. Brands have latched onto that in a way that is potentially quite enabling in terms of marketing the product. Is that something LGFG does, or if not, would you ever consider doing that?
Yes and yes. I mean, obviously, social proof works. That's, if you read like Robert Cialdini's, Influence, probably the preemptive marketing book on influence in itself. I mean, it's been empirically proven, so it's not just anecdotal to us, and we are definitely working with some professional athletes that we do like to post their picture in social media and repost it, because it gives us certain social proof. Yes, I think in the near to medium future, probably we will also latch on to somebody, whether it's a person or a group of people that we could officially, let's say, partner with to be the face of our brand. Because I think from the objective evidence in the world and what we see internally, it seems to have positive feedback from clients.
Yeah. How do you develop your marketing plans? I know that over the past few months, I've seen random posts with animal heads affixed to well-dressed male torsos, which I think is clever. And there's a nice description of whether it's the lion or the bear or the buffalo, that sort of puts that animal in a business setting. Is that going to be a consistent feature of LGFG, or is that and how long have you been doing that? What was the kernel of that marketing plan?
Honestly, the kernel of it was really funny, is that there's a couple, but one of the main ones, there's one I can't talk about because it was part of a secret marketing strategy we're still deploying, and once it lands, I'll make a big announcement about it. I expect it to land in about September.
Okay.
And once it lands, I think people will understand the connection. But the initial thought about it was, well, we use our own employees as models in our brand. And so we publish a magazine, we send it out to clients, we put it on social media. It's our own people. We have beautiful employees. I mean, we're lucky that way. And we thought about how do we remarket these same photos from 2-3 seasons ago. And we thought, well, if we put animal heads on them, it's a different photo now, right? Right. So that was, but it grew to something bigger because, I had one made of me. That was our designer made one of me, and I was a tiger. And I thought, man, I can relate with the tiger. I'm a bit of a hunter type. I like to, pounce on opportunities. I like to be dominant in my environment. It's just how I'm built. And I'm like, that really. And then she said, well, why don't we do it for different? There's my CFO. He's really more of an owl. He's a very wise, methodical. Qualities associated with owls. I have a wolf in my office who's a true, just loves to hunt. I got a couple of chameleons, and I thought, hey, let's put that in the corporate setting. And what's cool about it is if you look at LinkedIn, some people comment and they go, oh my God, you put a buffalo there. And I always thought of myself as a buffalo, and people connected with that. So it's kind of fortuitous that worked for us. And yeah, it'll be and I interviewed a lady in New Zealand who might watch the show later that received an offer from our company, and she told me, she goes, she has a son, and her son really likes fashion. And she said, I told my son that I have this interview with LGFG Fashion House, and the son goes, I know those guys. They do animals on Instagram.
No, it's a great calling card. Well, so for our listeners who want to establish a relationship, make use of the service or evaluate making use of the service, how do they go about doing that?
Well, so typically we reach out to people because we call on people and companies and obviously offer our services, or they might meet us at an event. But if somebody's interested and they want to explore our brand and see what we're about, they can visit our website at lgfg.com.
Excellent. Well, any final words, Dimitry, before we break?
All right. Thanks for putting this out into the universe. I think there was a great podcast recently that I watched. You might have seen it, actually. If you haven't, check it out. It's on Joe Rogan's podcast. He has Guy Ritchie on the show.
Okay.
And Guy Ritchie has about an 8-minute segment just talking about how important it is for him to wear a well-tailored suit and what it represents to him as a man, as a person, as an individual, as a professional, as a producer. And just putting that out into the world, I think, creates a lot of positivity. So thank you for putting this out into the world, because whether people do business with me or you is considerably less relevant to the message that is being sent out and what it brings back.
Well, thanks for joining us. That's a wrap. I will send you a copy of The Laws of Style. I know you already have one, but every guest gets one. And look forward to watching the success of LGFG in the future.
Thank you, Doug.
Bye now.
You've been listening to The Laws of Style with Douglas Hand. For more information, go to our website at www.hballp.com. And you can also follow us on Instagram and Twitter at Hand of the Law. Thank you for tuning in, and stay stylish.